Welcome back to the deep dive.
Hey there. Good to be diving in again.
So today we're tackling a really fascinating figure in American filmmaking, the director James Gray.
Ah, James Gray. Yeah, he's a bit of a contradiction, isn't he? In a really interesting way.
That's exactly it, a
Yeah.
contradiction, or maybe a paradox.
Yeah, paradox works.
Yeah.
Because you've got these two, seemingly opposite poles in his work.
Right. Describe those.
Well, on one side, he's just the absolute master of these incredibly grounded, almost claustrophobic New York crime dramas.
Like Little Odessa, that kind of vibe.
Exactly. Little Odessa, The Yards, very specific, very rooted in place, gritty.
Mm-hmm.
But then you've got the other James Gray, the one who makes these massive kind of genre-defying epics.
You mean like The Lost City of Z, that historical adventure?
That one, yeah. Or even going further, something like Ad Astra. You know,
Uh-huh.
this big philosophical sci-fi journey.
It's such a jump, isn't it, from, like you said, the specificity of a single Brooklyn neighborhood to the sheer emptiness of deep space. He operates in both those zones.
Simultaneously, almost. It's like he contains both.
And that's really the mystery we want to explore today. We've gone through a whole stack of sources on his career, and they really paint this comprehensive picture, where his stories come from, which is deeply personal stuff.
Oh, hugely personal. You see it again and again.
His key collaborators, you see the same names pop up.
That's a big part of his process, yeah.
And some really surprising side projects. I mean, we have to talk about the opera.
He directed an opera. It's kind of amazing.
And then there's this whole other layer, this incredible list of films he almost made.
The what ifs.
Yeah, films he turned down, or ones that were in development for years and just poof, fell apart.
That list alone tells you so much about his path and maybe the industry itself.
So that's our mission for this deep dive, tracing that evolution. It's a fundamental question, really.
It is.
How does the director, who became known, almost synonymous with those gritty New York crime stories?
Set in a very specific time, usually. Mid to late 20th century.
Exactly. How does that filmmaker evolve, or maybe graduate is the word? How does he become someone tackling massive studio pictures about historical exploration or, existential questions in space?
Yeah, what's the through line? Or is it a break? It says a lot about the kind of ambition maybe hiding under the surface of those early films.
Definitely. So to figure out the James Gray who went to the stars, I think we absolutely have to start back on Earth, specifically New York.
Let's start in Queens.
Right. He was born in '69, grew up in Flushing, Queens. And that setting, New York City, it's just baked into his early work, isn't it?
Oh, completely. It's the canvas for, his first 3-4 films?
Mm-hmm.
But the real key, the sort of emotional DNA that comes from his family's background.
The immigrant heritage.
Yes, but it's even more specific than just immigrant story, which is important, but his roots are Russian-Jewish.
Okay.
His grandparents, they came from a place called Astra. It's in western Ukraine now, but back then part of the USSR.
Right, so that carries, that's a specific historical weight, isn't it? Eastern Europe, the Soviet experience, leaving.
Exactly. The upheaval, the survival, maybe the trauma of displacement. It hangs over things.
And there's this amazing detail in the sources, a real nugget about the family name itself.
Ah, yeah. This is fascinating.
It wasn't always Gray.
No. The original name was something like Grayevsky, or possibly Gracerstein.
Wow. Grayevsky to Gray.
Think about that transformation, that shortening, that anglicization becoming Gray.
It's like a symbol of assimilation right there in the name.
Absolutely. And you feel that echoes throughout his films, don't you? That sense of a changed identity or a hidden one. You see it in Little Odessa, certainly in The Immigrant.
It feels like the ghost haunting the characters. This struggle with where you came from and who you're supposed to be now.
It connects him immediately to that whole tradition of American filmmaking, the one that grapples with, old world heritage clashing with new world ambition.
Often through crime, right? That's a common lens.
Very often through crime, yeah. It becomes the pressure cooker for those tensions. Poverty, the law, family loyalty, identity, it all gets tangled up.
His characters always seem to be wrestling with something internal, not just external threats.
Yeah, they're often struggling with themselves, with that kind of fractured identity you mentioned.
So before he could put all that on screen, he needed the tools. He went to film school.
He did. University of Southern California School of Cinematic Arts, USC, big film school.
And apparently he stood out pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah. His student film, a short called Cowboys and Angels, that was the thing.
Oh, a special bud.
Just really well made, apparently. Showed a real command of visuals, storytelling. enough that it got him an agent right away.
That's impressive straight out of school.
But the key connection was producer Paul Webster. The short film got to him somehow.
Okay.
And Webster saw something there, saw the potential. He basically encouraged Gray, who was, early 20s?
Yeah, barely out of school.
Encouraged him to write a full-length script, something Webster could help get made.
And that script became...
It's Little Odessa.
Yeah.
His debut feature came out in 1994.
And Gray was incredibly young then, wasn't he? Like 25?
25 years old.
Yeah.
Directing his first feature. It's pretty remarkable.
And talk about specific geography. Little Odessa.
Couldn't be more specific. It stars Tim Roth, playing this hitman who has to go back to his old neighborhood.
Which is Brighton Beach, Brooklyn.
Exactly. Famously known as Little Odessa because of the huge concentration of Russian and, Eastern European immigrants there.
So he wasn't just making a generic New York crime film.
Not at all. He was putting a pin in a very specific map, a cultural enclave, giving it this really potent cinematic voice it felt lived in.
And the reaction for a debut.
Immediate acclaim, especially internationally.
Oh.
It won the Silver Lion at the Venice Film Festival that year.
Wow. The Silver Lion for your first film at 25? That's huge.
It's an incredible launch. It instantly put him on the global stage, maybe more aligned with that European festival circuit than, say, mainstream Hollywood right off the bat.
It signals a certain kind of seriousness, doesn't it?
Definitely. And he didn't pivot away from that world immediately either. His next film sort of doubled down.
Which was The Yards, came out in 2000.
Yeah, The Yards. Another New York crime story. Really meticulously crafted, dark, but this time set around the city's commuter rail yards.
So a different corner of the city's underbelly.
Exactly. If Little Odessa was about immigrant crime families, The Yards felt more about corruption within the system itself, like American infrastructure, labor, politics. Still very New York, still very gritty.
But there was some trouble with this one, right? Getting it released.
Yeah. Here's where you see the first real sign of friction. The film was actually shot way back in 1998.
2 years before it came out.
2 full years. Miramax had it. This was the Harvey Weinstein era Miramax.
Uh-oh.
And they basically sat on it, then finally released it in 2000, but apparently with very little support, not much of a theatrical push.
So even with the Venice win for his first film, he was already hitting roadblocks at the distribution side of things?
Yeah, it showed that his kind of complex, maybe less sensational, more atmospheric dramas, they weren't an easy fit for the commercial system. Even back then, he was already in for a fight.
Okay, so after The Yards finally gets out, what happens next? There's a bit of a gap before his third feature.
There is. The early 2000s seemed to be a period of trying to get the next project going. He actually had the script for We Own the Night ready around 2002.
But it didn't get made until...
Production didn't start until 2006, and it came out in 2007. So, yeah, another gap there. But this one really cemented his ability to attract top-tier actors.
We Own the Night. This feels like peak Gray, right? That specific New York atmosphere.
Oh, absolutely. Pure distilled gray. It's set in 1988, which is, right in the thick of the crack epidemic and the drug wars in New York. Very gritty time.
And the cast is phenomenal. Joaquin Phoenix and Mark Wahlberg.
Playing brothers, which is key.
Yeah.
Phoenix is a nightclub manager, kind of walking this tightrope between his legitimate business and his, let's say, deep connections to the Russian mob.
And
Wahlberg is the other side of the coin. He's a police detective. Clean cut, by the book, moral center, maybe.
So it's a Cain and Abel story, basically, set against this backdrop of crime and corruption.
Pretty much. Driven by loyalty, betrayal, moral choices, classic gray themes. And it definitely got noticed. It was in competition at Cannes in 2007.
Cannes again. He seems to have a strong relationship with that festival.
He really does.
Yeah.
But the sources make a point of saying the reception for We Own the Night was widely divergent.
Okay, what does that mean? Divergent how?
Well, it seems like the split often fell along geographical lines almost. A lot of American critics saw it as, maybe well-made, good performances, but ultimately maybe a bit familiar. Another entry in the crime genre. Maybe not as flashy as, say, Scorsese's stuff, which had kind of redefined the genre by then.
Right, expectations are different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas European critics, especially at Cannes, they seem to respond more strongly to the underlying structure. They saw the, almost classical tragedy in it.
Less genre exercise, more moral drama.
Yeah, they picked up on the Dostoevskian echoes, the weight of the choices. They treated it more like cinematic literature, perhaps.
That's a really interesting distinction. And that perception, particularly the European acclaim, apparently gave him something important for his next film.
It seems like it did. The success, or at least the critical validation from Cannes for We Own the Night, gave him essentially complete creative freedom for his next one.
Which was Two Levels in 2008.
Two Lovers. And this is where he makes that connection explicit, the one between his New York realism and classic literature.
How so? What's the film about?
Well, first off, it's not a crime drama at all. It's a romance, a really melancholic, kind of painful romance.
Starring Joaquin Phoenix again?
Phoenix again, yeah.
Yeah.
Playing this quite vulnerable, fragile man who finds himself caught between two very different women, Gwyneth Paltrow and Vanessa Shaw.
Okay, so a relationship drama. Where does the literary connection come in?
It's based loosely, the sources say, on a short story by Fyodor Dostoevsky.
Dostoevsky. Wow. Which story?
White Nights.
Ah, okay. That's a beautiful, very sad story about loneliness and fantasy. Delusion, maybe?
Exactly. It's about this dreamer who has a brief, intense connection, but ultimately is left alone with his fantasies. Deeply Russian, deeply melancholic.
So how did Gray take that and put it in, like, contemporary Brighton Beach? That seems like a huge leap.
He focused on the emotional core, that feeling of profound alienation the narrator has in the story, this tendency to live more in your head and your dreams than in the messy reality.
Okay.
And he just transplanted that feeling, that sort of spiritual isolation, onto the backdrop of modern Brooklyn. You've got the family pressures, the noise, the setting.
The dry cleaning business, I think.
Yeah, the family business, the expectations. But the internal struggle, the emotional stakes, they feel almost Dostoevskian in their intensity.
So even when the setting is completely grounded in his familiar New York territory,
Right.
the drama is pulling from this much older European literary tradition. It's about the soul's condition, not just, who shot who.
Perfectly put. It really clarifies his reference points.
And Two Lovers also went to Cannes, right? Kept that streak going.
It did. Premiered there, got good reviews. It solidified him as this serious auteur, a festival favorite.
And that momentum, that connection to a kind of classical European sensibility seems to carry directly into his next film, The Immigrant, in 2013.
Yes. And The Immigrant, you could argue, is maybe the most direct engagement with his own heritage up to that point.
Tell us about the backstory. How did this one come about?
It's kind of a neat connection. Gray had co-written a script for the French actor-director Guillaume Canet.
Okay. What film was that?
Blood Ties, another crime film, actually. And through working with Canet, he met Canet's partner at the time, Marion Cotillard.
The French actress. Amazing actress.
Phenomenal. And Gray was apparently so impressed by her, so captivated, that he specifically wrote the lead role in The Immigrant for her, the character of Iwa Cebulski.
So what's the story of The Immigrant?
It's set in the 1920s. Cotillard plays Iwa, a Polish nurse who arrives at Ellis Island with her sister.
The classic entry point for so many immigrants.
Exactly. But things go wrong immediately. Her sister's quarantined, sick, and Iwa is kind of cast adrift, vulnerable. She falls under the influence of this theater manager, who seems charming at first, but is actually quite predatory.
And he forces her into prostitution?
Essentially, yeah. He runs this sort of burlesque theater, but also uses the women. She has to make these terrible choices to try and survive and save her sister. It's a really harrowing look at the dark side of the American dream.
That promise of a new life turning into exploitation, it feels like it connects directly back to that idea of the Grayevsky name change, the cost of assimilation.
Absolutely. It's about the price you pay, the compromises, the loss of dignity, maybe even identity that can come with trying to make it in America, especially as a vulnerable newcomer.
And the predatory theater manager. Let me guess who played him.
Who else? Joaquin Phoenix.
Of course. Their fourth film together by this point.
That's right. Fourth collaboration. Phoenix is just perfect for that kind of gray character complex, morally ambiguous, capable of both charm and cruelty. He's both a victimizer and maybe a victim of the system himself in some ways.
It's clearly a really deep, fruitful actor-director relationship.
One of the great modern ones, I think. They just seem to understand each other on a fundamental level.
And The Immigrant can again.
Can again. Nominated for the Palme d'Or, making it his fourth film in competition there by 2013.
4 films in the main competition at Cannes by 2013. That's a serious achievement.
It really is. It cements him as this major international auteur, someone whose artistic vision is taken incredibly seriously on the world stage, even if maybe his box office numbers in the U.S. weren't always huge.
He hadn't quite crossed over into being a household name for the average American moviegoer, maybe?
Not yet, but critically, he was absolutely top tier.
So this feels like a natural turning point. He spent, nearly 20 years mastering this very specific kind of film, the New York story, the moral drama. often rooted in crime or intense relationships.
Yeah, perfecting that intimate, often quite dark vision.
And then he does something completely different. The sources really mark The Lost City of Z in 2016 as a massive shift.
Oh, it's a huge pivot in scale, in genre, in setting, everything.
Talk about scale. What's the difference?
Well, think about it. He goes from the, cramped apartments, the dimly lit bars, the train yards of New York.
Right, claustrophobic spaces.
To the Amazon rainforest, the vast, suffocating, seemingly endless jungle.
It's based on the David Grann book, right? The nonfiction one.
Exactly. Incredible book. It tells the true story of Percy Fawcett, this British explorer in the early 20th century, played by Charlie Hunnam in the film.
And Fawcett was obsessed with finding this ancient lost city in the Amazon.
Utterly obsessed. It consumed him. The film follows his expeditions, his struggles, his family life back home, and ultimately, his mysterious disappearance. It's an epic in the truest sense.
But it's interesting, even though the scale and setting are completely different, the themes still feel kind of gray-like, don't they? Obsession, the search for something unattainable, the cost of that search.
Absolutely. You hit it right there. He basically took his core thematic concerns, that Dostoevskian psychological depth, the collision between aspiration and reality, the potentially fatal nature of obsession, and just projected them onto this enormous canvas.
Instead of a moral struggle in Brooklyn, it's a physical and spiritual struggle in the jungle.
Exactly. It required a completely different filmmaking approach. Huge budget compared to his earlier work. Massive logistics, shooting on location in incredibly difficult conditions.
It's the total opposite of the controlled environments of his New York films.
Completely. And the film premiered, not at Cannes this time, but at the New York Film Festival in 2016.
And the reception. Did people think he pulled off this huge leap?
Generally, yes. It was widely praised as this ambitious, visually stunning, intelligent epic. It proved he wasn't just a director of small, intense dramas. He could handle scope, history, adventure. He was a formalist, capable of painting on a much larger canvas.
So after conquering the Amazon, where do you go next?
Apparently, you go to space.
Ad Astra.
Ad Astra. News came out around 2016, I think at Cannes, actually, that he was finally going to direct this project he'd had in mind for a long time. His space epic.
This felt like his biggest swing yet, commercially speaking.
Oh, definitely. A big studio sci-fi film, 20th Century Fox, starring Brad Pitt, one of the biggest stars in the world.
What's the premise?
Pitt plays this astronaut, very stoic, very controlled, who has to travel across the solar system, like way out there, to Neptune.
Wow.
To find his father, played by Tommy Lee Jones, who was also a famous astronaut, but disappeared years ago on a mission near Neptune and might now be posing a threat to the entire solar system.
Okay, so it's got the epic journey of the father-son thing.
But it's really an internal journey, too. It's deeply philosophical, existential. It's been described as like Apocalypse Now or Heart of Darkness set in space.
Wow, that's ambitious.
Hugely ambitious.
Yeah.
And visually, it's spectacular. Premiered at Venice in 2019. It really shows him pushing his themes onto the grandest possible stage. Isolation, connection, the search for meaning.
But there's always a but when you talk about these massive studio films, isn't there? Especially for an auteur like Gray.
There often is. And this is a really crucial point the sources bring up regarding Ad Astra and Gray's experience with the studio system. Gray himself has stated, quite publicly and on multiple occasions since the film's release, that the version of Ad Astra that ended up in theaters was not his final cut.
Studio interference.
It sounds like it. He specifically mentioned issues with the voiceover narration.
Which is quite prominent in the film, Pitt's voiceover.
Very prominent. And apparently much of that was added late in post-production, sort of against his wishes, essentially to make the plot clearer or more palatable for a wider audience.
Ouch. That's got to be frustrating for a director.
Terribly frustrating. It's that classic tension, isn't it? The auteur's vision versus the studio's need for a commercial hit, especially with a big-budget film like that.
It suggests that while he could navigate the literal jungle of the Lost City of Z, the sort of bureaucratic jungle of Hollywood might be even harder to manage when you're playing at that budget level. Creative control becomes the battleground.
Absolutely. The stakes are just so high financially.
And it's fascinating what he did next after that experience. It feels like a direct reaction.
It really does. After grappling with the, immense scale and maybe the compromises of Ad Astra, he does this complete U-turn.
Back to New York.
Not just back to New York, but back to his own childhood, deep into his personal past with Armageddon Time in 2022.
This was explicitly autobiographical, wasn't it? Or semi-autobiographical.
Yeah, described as a coming-of-age drama, based loosely but very intimately on his own memories growing up in Flushing, Queens in the 1980s.
What themes was he exploring there?
Big themes, but grounded in personal experience. Race, class, privilege, friendship, family dynamics. Particularly looking at the relationship between a young boy basically standing in for Gray himself and his friendship with a black classmate, and how the societal structures and family prejudices impact that friendship.
It sounds incredibly personal, almost like a palate cleanser after the vastness and potential conflicts of Ad Astra.
It feels like that, doesn't it? A return to home base, emotionally and geographically. And he still attracted major talent.
Who was in it?
Anne Hathaway played the mother figure. Anthony Hopkins was the grandfather. Jeremy Strong played the father. A really powerhouse cast digging into this very humanist, character-focused story.
And let me guess, Cannes.
You guessed it. World premieres at the Cannes Film Festival. The connection remains strong.
And he might not be done with that particular story, right? There's talk of a follow-up.
That's right. He's expressed serious interest in doing a sort of semi-sequel to Armageddon Time.
Focused on who?
Specifically on his mother's story, the character played by Anne Hathaway.
What aspect of her story?
It would apparently cover this really difficult, devastating period. It's when his father, after years of struggling, finally achieved some significant financial success. The American dream finally clicking.
Okay.
Only to have it all taken away. Confiscated by the government because of some kind of legal trouble the father got into.
Wow. That's brutal.
And this financial collapse happened at the exact same time that his mother found out she was terminally ill, found out she was dying.
Oh my God, that's incredibly heavy.
Isn't it? The dream achieved and then immediately shattered, coinciding with this ultimate personal tragedy. It sounds like incredibly powerful, potent material. Very Gray.
It really taps into that fragility of success, the vulnerability underlying everything, even when things seem good. That feels very much in his wheelhouse.
Completely. The American dream as something precarious, easily lost.
Okay, so that brings us to a really fun section based on the sources, what we're calling the Gray Files.
Ah, yes, the land of what might have been.
Exactly. This is all about the films that James Gray didn't make, either because he turned them down, sometimes famously,
or because they were projects he spent years developing that just ultimately didn't happen, fell apart.
And this stuff is really revealing about his priorities, his career path.
It absolutely is. It shows a clear pattern of maybe resisting the obvious commercial move.
Like what? Give us an example.
Okay, get this. Early on, after the success of Little Odessa, when he was the hot young director, he was offered Good Will Hunting.
He was offered Good Will Hunting, the Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, Robin Williams film.
The very same. Huge hit, Oscar winner. He was offered the chance to direct it, and he passed.
Wow. Can you even imagine a James Gray version of Good Will Hunting? It would be different.
Radically different, probably. Much darker, more ambiguous. Who knows? But he said no.
That's a major turning point right there. Choosing not to take that big mainstream opportunity.
It shows he was already committed to a certain kind of filmmaking, maybe a more personal, less easily categorizable path.
Any other big ones he turned down?
He also turned down The Devil's Own, the thriller with Harrison Ford and Brad Pitt.
Really? And apparently Pitt himself offered it to him. They were friends.
Yeah, the source says Pitt, who was his friend, brought him the script. He still said no.
He just seems consistently drawn to his own material, his own specific world.
It seems that way. He even turned down an acting role.
An acting role? In what?
In Wes Anderson's The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, the part that eventually went to Noah Taylor, Gray turned it down.
Okay, that's fascinating. He clearly has a very strong sense of what fits him and what doesn't, even beyond directing.
Definitely. But just as revealing as the films he turned down are the ones he wanted to make, poured energy into, but couldn't get off the ground. Especially some ambitious historical or genre pieces, long before he actually made Lost City of Z or Ad Astra.
Like what?
Well, back in 1997, he was apparently in talks to direct something called Killer Spy.
Killer Spy? About who?
It was a biopic about Aldrich Ames, the CIA agent who became a notorious spy for the Russians.
Oh, right. Big Cold War betrayal story.
Huge story. And Kevin Spacey was being discussed for the lead role back then. Imagine that film in '97, directed by Gray.
That sounds like it could have been amazing. Why didn't it happen?
Who knows? These things fall apart for a million reasons. But then there was another big one around 2000.
Yeah.
A project about Edgardo Mortara.
Edgardo Mortara. That name rings a bell. Wasn't that a really controversial historical case?
Extremely controversial. It was this infamous incident in 1858 in Italy.
Right.
A 6-year-old Jewish boy was secretly baptized by his family's Catholic maid when he was ill. Then, the papal police, under orders from Pope Pius IX himself, basically kidnapped the boy from his family.
Because he was now technically Catholic?
Exactly, and they raised him as a Catholic. It caused this massive international uproar. Huge historical, religious, political implications.
And Gray wanted to make a film about that back in 2000.
He planned to direct it and co-write the script. I mean, talk about ambitious, complex material, dealing with faith, power, family, anti-Semitism.
That sounds incredibly challenging. Again, didn't happen.
Didn't happen. Maybe too controversial, too difficult to finance. It's a recurring theme.
And then there's the story of the Gray Man.
Ah, yes. The one that eventually did get made, but very differently.
Right. So Gray was originally attached to direct this. When was that?
Back in 2011. It was based on the novel by Mark Greaney, an action thriller set up at New Regency.
And who was attached to star back then?
Brad Pitt, again.
Pitt and Gray trying to get something going.
Seems like it. But eventually, both Gray and Pitt dropped out of that version.
And the project just sat there.
For years, yeah. Until eventually it got revived as a big-budget streaming movie directed by the Russo brothers, starring Ryan Gosling and Chris Evans. A very different kind of film, by all accounts.
More of a straightforward action blockbuster.
Yeah. Which suggests Gray's take would likely have been something else entirely. More character-driven, maybe darker, more textured.
It's another example of his style maybe not quite fitting the mold the studios often want for these big genre pictures.
It seems that way.
Yeah.
And that struggle continued. There was another big espionage project he was attached to more recently.
What was that?
I Am Pilgrim, based on the big best-selling spy novel by Terry Hayes. MGM hired him to direct the adaptation back in 2018.
I remember hearing about that. Sounded like a potential franchise starter.
It did, but Gray confirmed himself in 2022 that the project was, in his words, officially dead.
Why? What happened this time?
Basically said it just got tangled up in a business mess. Studios changing ownership, priorities shifting, budgets getting lost in the shuffle, bureaucratic collapse, essentially.
That sounds so frustrating. Pouring years into developing something.
Only to have it die because of corporate restructuring or something. It's a painful side of the business, especially for ambitious projects that need stability.
It seems like a real pattern for him with these larger scale genre or historical pieces he tries to get off the ground.
It does. The ideas are there, the ambition is there, but navigating the system to actually make them is incredibly tough.
Okay, so that's the past, the what ifs. But the good news is his current pipeline looks incredibly busy. He seems to be entering a really productive phase now.
Yeah, the list of upcoming projects is quite something. Suggests he's found ways to get things moving.
What's first up? There's something called Paper Tiger.
Right. Paper Tiger. Filming started or was set to start in 2025. It's described as a blue-chip crime drama thriller.
Okay, sounds like he's returning to his roots a bit. Crime drama.
Seems like it. It's about two brothers chasing the American dream who get involved in some kind of scheme that's, too good to be true. Classic setup, but probably with his signature depth.
Sounds promising. What else is on the slate?
A big biopic. It's called Mayday 109, about a young John F. Kennedy, specifically focusing on his time in World War II, when his patrol boat, the PT-109, sank, and he famously helped save his crew.
Wow. A JFK war story. Who's playing Kennedy?
Bill Skarsgård is attached.
Interesting casting. So that's history, heroism, endurance.
Yeah.
Themes we've seen him explore before.
This really fits. Then he's also jumping back into sci-fi.
Really? After the Astra experience?
Apparently so. He's taken over directing duties from Neil Berger on a film called Summer Frost. Zoe Saldana is attached to star in that one.
Okay. And there's a murder mystery, too, with a big star.
Yes. Kill Your Darlings.
Yeah.
It's based on a novel by Peter Swanson, described as a murder mystery told in reverse.
Told in reverse. Interesting structure.
Yeah. And it's set to team him up with Julia Roberts.
Gray directing Julia Roberts in a reverse murder mystery. That sounds fantastic.
Doesn't it? The sheer variety in these upcoming projects is really striking.
Yeah.
Crime, biopic, sci-fi, mystery.
He's really stretching his wings now.
Seems like it. Although, there is one project, the Ultimate Dream Project, that still seems out of reach.
What's that?
His massive personal epic about the Russian Revolution.
Oh, connecting back to his roots again.
Deeply. It's apparently called The Dream of 1,000 Men. But he said himself recently, I think in 2022, that he feels it's unlikely to get made anytime soon.
Why? Too big, too expensive.
Geopolitics, mainly. He cited the invasion of Ukraine, suggesting that making a huge, complex film about Russian history is just not feasible or perhaps appropriate right now.
That makes sense. So that dream, the Gruevsky family history, meeting the grand sweep of the revolution, that remains on hold.
For now, it seems. A casualty of current events.
One last thing on his upcoming work, he's also moving into television.
He is developing a limited series about the novelist Norman Mailer, based on a major biography of Mailer, A Double Life.
Wow, Mailer's a huge, complex, controversial figure. That sounds like rich territory for a limited series.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It seems like he's really embracing different formats now to tell the kinds of complex stories he's drawn to.
It's an impressive slate. He's clearly not slowing down.
Not at all. If anything, he seems to be accelerating.
So beyond the feature films and the upcoming projects, we should touch on some of his other work, which also reveals different facets of his artistry.
Right. Like many directors, he's done some commercial work.
Yeah, the sources mention a Chanel commercial.
That's right. In 2015, he directed one of the Bleu de Chanel men's fragrance ads, the one starring the late Gaspard Ulliel.
I think I remember that. Very stylish, cinematic looking.
Yeah, filmed in L.A., very polished. Shows he can do that high-end commercial aesthetic when needed.
But the really surprising detour, the one that really underscores his connection to, like, classical European art forms, is the opera.
The opera debut. It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about his gritty New York origins.
What opera did he stage, and where?
In 2019, he directed Mozart's The Marriage of Figaro.
Mozart, one of the absolute cornerstones of the repertoire.
Exactly. And he staged it at a very prestigious venue, the Théâtre des Champs-Élysées in Paris.
From Brighton Beach to Mozart in Paris, that's quite the journey.
Isn't it? It requires a completely different skill set. Understanding the music, the staging, the pacing of opera versus film. It's a huge artistic leap.
It really speaks to his intellectual curiosity and his alignment with those European traditions we talked about earlier.
And it was apparently a very high-profile production, too. The costumes were designed by Christian Lacroix,
the legendary French fashion designer.
the one and only. So you've got Mozart, James Gray directing, Lacroix costumes in Paris. It's this synthesis of high art forms.
It really broadens the picture of who he is as an artist beyond just the crime movie guy.
Absolutely. And if you want one more window into his artistic soul, into what drives him, look at the films he loves.
The Sight and Sound poll list, directors choose the greatest films ever made.
Exactly. He submitted his top 10 list for the 2022 poll, and it's incredibly revealing. It basically maps out his influences perfectly.
Okay, what's on the list? Any surprises?
It's this amazing mix. You got the towering American classics you might expect, Citizen Kane. The Godfather, parts 1 and 2, counted as 1. Raging Bull, Vertigo, and 2001, A Space Odyssey.
Okay, those are undeniable pillars of American cinema. Films about ambition, power, psychology, scale.
Exactly. They represent that epic scope and deep character work. But then look at the other half of the list, the international choices.
What did he pick there?
Fellini's 8.5, Visconti's The Leopard, another grand historical epic from Italy.
Okay.
Dreyer's Or Death, the Danish spiritual masterpiece.
Huh.
Jacques Tati's Playtime from France, that incredibly ambitious, almost architectural comedy.
And
Ozu's Tokyo Story, the quiet, devastating Japanese family drama.
that's an incredible list. What does that combination tell you? Godfather and Tokyo Story, 2001, and Or Death.
It tells you he's drawn to both incredible scale and profound intimacy. He loves films that grapple with huge existential questions, faith or debt, the nature of time and history, The Leopard 2001, The Creative Process 8.5, Societal Change, Playtime.
But also films that find the universe in the smallest human interactions, like Tokyo Story.
Precisely. That blend of the epic and the intimate mirrors his own career, doesn't it? He started with the intense, small scale of family and crime in New York.
And then reached for the historical scale of Lost City of Z and the cosmic scale of Ad Astra.
It all makes sense when you see his canon of influences. He's wrestling with those same big themes, that distance between the personal and the epic, the old world and the new.
He really seems to carry the weight of history, his family's cinemas, the immigrant experience into everything he does.
Yeah, creating these films that feel deeply rooted in a specific place, often New York, but resonate with these much larger, universal human questions.
So wrapping this up, if we look back at James Gray's path, It's quite something. He starts out as this, almost definitive voice for a certain kind of New York story.
Yeah, the master of that insular, deeply personal crime saga. You can see his own Russian Jewish heritage, the immigrant struggle, reflected so clearly in films like Little Odessa or The Immigrant. Themes of belonging, assimilation, the cost of survival.
But then he completely defies easy categorization. He proves he can handle these enormous canvases.
Absolutely. The historical sweep and geographical challenge of the Amazon and the lost city of Z, the technical demands and existential weight of deep space and Ad Astra.
And his critical reputation is just consistently stellar, isn't it? 5 films competing for the Palme d'Or at Cannes. That's remarkable consistency at the highest level.
It really is. He might consciously avoid the easy commercial path, the obvious hits he turned down.
Right.
But he commands this immense respect from critics and festivals worldwide. He's a true auteur in that sense.
Which brings us to our final provocative thought for you, the listener, to chew on after this deep dive.
Okay.
Considering James Gray's intense focus on personal memory, which we see so clearly in Armageddon Time, and you combine that with his deep love for these grand, often dark philosophical international films like The Leopard or Odette, what connections can you draw between that very specific early 20th century Russian Jewish immigrant experience, the Grayevsky roots that clearly define his youth and his early work and his later drive to tackle these vast, almost unattainable horizons?
You mean like the Amazon jungle and Lost City of Z, Deep Space and Ad Astra, even wanting to make an epic about the entire Russian Revolution?
Exactly. Is there a link between the struggle to escape or understand the confines of that specific past and the ambition to reach for these immense, almost abstract futures or historical moments? What does that tension tell us about the American dream itself, that idea he keeps circling back to in all its complex, often tragic forms?
From the stale to the stars, perhaps. What's driving that reach? That's a
Right.
great question to ponder.